They laughed when my wife made a slideshow of my failures at my 62nd birthday. 20 people, a projector screen, jokes about how I couldn't even reheat leftovers. I stood there silent, didn't argue, didn't defend myself. I just smiled and left. For years later, she saw my face in a magazine. Her hand shook. No, it can't be. But it was. And by then, I'd already taken everything she thought she built alone. My name is Arthur Mackenzie. I'm 62 years old, and on my birthday last October, my wife Eleanor threw me a party I'll never forget. Not the good kind of never forget. The kind that sits in your chest like a stone. She rented the back room, the Willow Creek, our local country club, just a small dinner with friends. She told me that morning while I was fixing the garbage disposal she'd been complaining about for weeks. I should have known something was off when she smiled too wide, touched my shoulder too gently. Eleanor wasn't the gentle type anymore. I walked into that room at 7:30 sharp. 20 people jumped up and yelled, "Surprise!" and my stomach dropped before my brain could catch up. There were balloons everywhere, and I'm talking the cheap kind with my face poorly photoshopped onto a sleeping turtle. A banner read, "Happy birthday to the world's okayest husband." Okay, not great. Not good. Okayest. Then the lights dimmed. A projector screen lit up behind the head table. Bold red letters appeared. Life lessons for my lazy husband. A survival guide. My wife Eleanor stepped up to the microphone like she was hosting the Oscars. She wore that red dress, the one she bought for her work Christmas party last year, but never wore around me. Her coworkers were there, her book club friends. People I'd grilled steaks for at summer barbecues. They all had drinks in their hands and smiles on their faces. The first slide appeared, a photo of me asleep on the couch, mouth open, TV remote still in my hand. The caption read, "This is how he prepares for important meetings." Laughter rippled through the room. Eleanor grinned into the mic. "Now, don't get me wrong," Eleanor said, her voice sugary and sharp. "Arthur has many talents. Sleeping is just his most developed one." More laughter. I stood near the door, hands in my pockets, and didn't move. Didn't smile, didn't react. The second slide was worse. A blurry shot of me at the stove staring at the microwave. Caption, "His idea of cooking, intimidating leftovers until they reheat themselves." Her book club friends are cackling now. One woman, Karen, actually wiped tears from her eyes. My stepdaughter, Chloe, who I'd helped move in her dorm just 2 months ago, snorted loudly when the next slide appeared. It was a video clip. Me trying to assemble a bookshelf from some flat-pack furniture store. I was muttering, "Why don't these instructions have words?" And Eleanor had looped it 3 times with a laugh track. I stood there like a statue. My face didn't move. Inside, something shut off. Quietly, permanently, Eleanor leaned into the mic and said, "Don't worry, folks. His house broken mostly." The room erupted. I should have walked out, but I didn't. I stayed until the slideshow ended, until the cake was cut, until people came up and patted my shoulder and said things like, "You're a good sport, Art. And she really got you good, huh?" Eleanor kissed my cheek for the cameras. I tilted my head back. Her lips landed on air. She laughed. "Oh, don't be dramatic, honey." Then she whispered low enough that only I could hear, "It's just a joke. Lighten up." That's when I knew she wasn't cruel because she hated me. She was cruel because she believed I'd never leave. I didn't make a scene that night. Didn't yell or break dishes or storm out like some wounded animal. That's not how you survive in a war zone. You go quiet. You observe. You plan. When we got home, Eleanor was still riding high on the attention. She scrolled through her phone, giggling at comments on the photos she'd already posted. "Look at this one," she said, holding up her screen. Karen said, "You were such a good sport." See, everyone loved it. I nodded, said nothing, kissed her forehead, and went to the bedroom. She called after me, her voice. Eleanor said, "You're not mad, are you?" I turned back. "No," I replied, "just tired." That seemed to satisfy her. She went back to her phone, back to her validation, back to the world where humiliation was currency. And I was the joke that kept paying dividends. But I wasn't tired. I was done. While she slept, I sat in the living room with the lights off. The house was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator and the occasional creak of old wood settling. I stared at the wall and thought about everything I'd built in this marriage. Not the house, not the cars, not the stuff, the invisible things, the systems, the routines, the infrastructure that kept her life running smooth while she thought I was doing nothing. I'd spent 3 years preparing for this moment. Not consciously at first, but after enough small humiliations, enough dismissive comments, enough nights where I realized I was a convenience rather than a companion, I'd started building exits. Quiet ones, legal ones, irreversible ones. The next morning, I woke before dawn, made coffee, black, no sugar. Eleanor wouldn't be up for another 2 hours. I packed a single duffel bag, 2 changes of clothes, a thermos, a notebook, and a flash drive I'd been updating for months. I left my wedding ring on the kitchen counter right next to a laptop, the same laptop she'd used to create that slideshow. I didn't leave a note. Notes could be argued with. Silence couldn't. I walked out the front door at 6:15. The air was cold and sharp, the kind that clears your head and reminds you you're still alive. I didn't look back. Not at the house, not at the street, not at the life I'd spent 2 decades building. 3 miles down the road, I stopped at a gas station and used the pay phone. Yes, they still exist. I called a number I'd memorized months ago. A man answered on the second ring. "It's time," I said. He replied, "Understood. Everything's in motion." I hung up, bought a newspaper, sat in the corner booth of a diner that smelled like burnt toast and pancake syrup, and I waited. Not for her to call, not for her to realize I was gone, but for the first automated notification to hit her inbox, the one that would tell her the house was no longer in my name, that the accounts had been legally separated, that every digital thread connecting us had been severed in the night. By the time she woke up, I was already a ghost. 3 weeks after I left, Eleanor posted a video on Instagram. Her sitting at her kitchen island sipping wine. Caption reading, "When her husband's still sulking, 3 weeks later, guess I'm the birthday villain now." She added a crying laughing emoji. 74 likes. Comments from her friends saying things like, "He'll be back. They always come back. And you didn't do anything wrong. He's just sensitive." I watched it from a library computer 2 states away. Didn't react. Just took a screenshot and saved it to a folder I'd labeled evidence of character. What Eleanor didn't know was that her world was already coming apart slowly, methodically, like pulling threads from a sweater until there's nothing left but yarn. That same day, my stepdaughter Chloe called her from college. I knew because I'd set up alerts on certain accounts. The school's bursar office had sent an email. Tuition payment failed twice. Chloe, my stepdaughter, assumed it was a technical glitch. She told her mother, "Eleanor, Mom, something's wrong with the school account. Can you check it?" Eleanor logged in, or tried to. Access denied. Password changed. Recovery email no longer valid. She called the bank that managed the education trust. They were polite but firm. "Ma'am, that account is administered through a revocable trust established by Mr. McKinsey before your marriage. You were added as a convenience user, not a legal owner. He's revoked that access." Eleanor's voice must have gone shrill. I could imagine it. "That's impossible. I've been paying her tuition for years." The banker paused. "No, ma'am. He has." That would have stung, but it was just the beginning. 2 days later, a brown envelope arrived at the house. IRS audit notice. Triggered by discrepancies in her Etsy business tax filings from 2 years back. The year I'd helped her cut corners on self-employment taxes. Mileage she never drove. Office space she didn't use. All filed under my preparer ID. Now I was gone. And the IRS wanted documentation, receipts, logs, proof, all of which I had on encrypted drives behind passwords only I knew. She called the IRS. Waited 47 minutes on hold. When someone finally answered, they asked for records. Eleanor said, "My husband has them." "And where is your husband, ma'am?" She didn't have an answer. Then her Etsy merchant account froze. Routine verification. They said they just needed confirmation of business ownership and a digital signature from the cosigner on the account. The cosigner was me. She tried to call me. My number was disconnected. She tried email, bounced back. She tried social media. My accounts were deleted. Eleanor started calling around my old coworkers. The guy at the hardware store. Nobody had seen me. One man, A retired machinist I used to have coffee with said Art once joked he'd disappear if things got bad enough. Thought he was kidding. He wasn't. By the end of week 3, Eleanor's smug little Instagram video was deleted. Her relationship status changed to it's complicated, and the comments from her friends shifted from supportive to curious. Where is he? Is everything okay? Do you need help? She needed help, but not the kind anyone could give her because I wasn't coming back. And every system she relied on, every convenience she took for granted was quietly shutting down one by one, like lights going out in an empty house. By week 5, Eleanor stopped pretending everything was fine. She hired a private investigator. A former cop named Detective Grant, 53 years old, built like a filing cabinet with a permanent scowl. He came to the house, sat at the kitchen table, and asked the obvious questions. When did you last see him? Did he take anything? Was there a fight? Eleanor answered carefully. We had a birthday party. It was fine. He was fine. Then he just left. Grant raised an eyebrow. Men don't just leave. Mrs. Mackenzie, there's always a reason. She bristled. I didn't do anything wrong. He didn't argue. Just wrote something in his notebook. Grant started with the basics. Social security records, credit reports, DMV, cell phone pings, nothing. Not a single trace. My passport hadn't been scanned. No rental cars, no plane tickets. My phone had pinged one final tower the night I left, then went dark. He didn't fly anywhere. Grant said on week 2 of his investigation. Didn't rent a car, didn't use his credit cards. Either he's dead or he planned this. Eleanor's face went pale. He's not dead. He's just being dramatic. Grant leaned back in his chair. Ma'am, with all due respect, a man who disappears this clean isn't being dramatic. He's being strategic. That word hung in the air. Strategic. Then Grant found something. A small detail buried in old shipping records. A bulk order for mailing supplies from 2 years prior. Billed to a P.O. box 2 counties over. The business named Mackenzie Strategy Group. Eleanor laughed when he told her. Arthur couldn't run a lemonade stand. Grant didn't smile. He ran something, and he did it quietly. More digging revealed an LLC registered 3 years ago. Filed in Montana, a trust attached to it. New registered agent clauses that redirected all estate powers away from anything joint. He untied every knot. Grant said over years you wouldn't have noticed because he did in pieces. Eleanor stared the documents spread across her kitchen table. Bank statements, legal filings, business registrations, all in Arthur's name, all dated years before he left. Why? She whispered. Grant looked at her. You tell me. She didn't answer, but she knew. She thought about the joke she'd made. The slideshow, the comments of her friends about how he couldn't even change a light bulb without help. The way she dismissed every small thing he did because it wasn't big enough, loud enough, impressive enough. Grant closed his notebook. Mrs. Mackenzie, your husband didn't leave on impulse. He left because he'd been planning it for years. And from what I can see, he made sure you'd have everything you said you built yourself. He stood up, but he also made sure you'd know exactly how much he was actually holding together. After Grant left, Eleanor sat alone in the kitchen. The house felt bigger, emptier, colder. She opened her laptop and searched for Mackenzie Strategy Group. Nothing came up, no website, no reviews, no social media presence. It was like Arthur had built a ghost company and walked into it, leaving her behind with all the things she thought mattered. The house, the car, the business she claimed was hers. But now, sitting alone, she realized something. None of it worked without him. The recycling plant sat on the edge of a town nobody remembered. Gray walls, humming machinery, the constant smell of wet cardboard and hot metal. Perfect place to disappear. I started on the night shift. No questions asked if you took cash under the table. The supervisor, a big guy named Mike, handed me gloves and a time card. Don't jam the conveyor with plastic bottles, he said. That's the only rule. I kept my head down, worked the line, sorted trash from 8 at night until 4 o'clock in the morning. Slept in a rented room above a tackle shop that smelled like fish guts and mildew. It wasn't pretty, but it was mine. During the day, while everyone else slept or drank themselves numb, I studied, downloaded PDFs on supply chain management, watched videos on logistics systems, read case studies about warehouse optimization. I wasn't trying to impress anyone. I was building something. Something that couldn't be mocked or torn down by someone who thought love meant humiliation. The other workers called me college because I spent breaks reading instead of smoking. They laughed. I didn't care. Let them laugh. For months in, the plant's computer system crashed during a power outage. Everything went dark. Inventory logs corrupted. Orders lost. Management panicked. I walked into the supervisor's office. Mike, my supervisor, was staring at a dead screen, looking like a man watching his career evaporate. I can fix it, I said. Mike looked at me. You? Yeah, me. He didn't have a better option, so he let me try. I spent 6 hours rewiring backup systems, rebuilding the database from fragments, coding workarounds on a laptop so old it still had a CD drive. By dawn, the system was running better than before. Mike stared at the screen like I performed a miracle. How the hell did you know how to do that? I read. I said we got around. Within a month, the regional manager showed up. Wanted to meet the guy who saved the operation. I sat across from him in a windowless office and he said, "We could use someone like you full-time. Day shift, better pay." I shook my head. I work better at night. He frowned. Why? Because nobody asks questions at night. He didn't push. But he came back a month later with a different offer. We need someone to audit our other facilities. Consultant work. You be independent. Work your own hours. I leaned back. I need in writing through my company. He blinked. You have a company? I do now. I'd registered McKinsey Strategy Group 2 weeks earlier. Cost me $85 in an afternoon at the library. Different name on the paperwork. Different tax ID. Clean slate. By the end of year 1, I wasn't scrubbing conveyor belts anymore. I was sitting in borrowed offices, redesigning inventory systems for facilities across 3 states, getting paid more in a month than I used to make in 6. And nobody knew who I used to be. Nobody knew about the slideshow, the jokes, the humiliation. They just knew I got results. And in business, that's the only thing that matters. I hadn't spoken to my son Simon in 4 years. Not because we fought, because after my second marriage, he drifted, said Eleanor. Made him feel like an outsider in my life. I didn't push back. Hard enough. That's a regret I carry. But 3 months after I left, he found me. I was sitting in a diner outside Pittsburgh, going over blueprints for a distribution center, when someone slid into the booth across from me. I looked up and there he was. Simon, 38 years old, broader in the shoulders than I remembered, graying at the temples like me. Hey, Dad, Simon said. I set down my pen. How'd you find me? Simon smiled. You helped me set up an LLC when I started my business. Remember? I know how the system works. Tracked your filings. Smart kid. Always was. We sat in silence for a moment. Then Simon said, Mom told me you left. By mom, he meant his actual mother. My first wife. We divorced when he was 12, but we stayed civil. I did, I replied. Good, Simon said. I was wondering when you'd finally walk away from that woman. I raised an eyebrow. You didn't like Eleanor. Nobody did, Dad. Except you. And even you didn't. Not really. You just stayed because you thought it was the right thing to do. He wasn't wrong. Simon leaned forward. I heard about the party. Chloe posted clips online before Eleanor made her take them down. I saw what she did to you. My jaw tightened. I didn't want to talk about it. Dad, Simon said, his voice firm. You don't owe her anything. You gave her 20 years. She gave you a punchline. I looked at him. Really looked at him. My son, the one I should have fought harder to keep close. I'm sorry, I said, for letting her push you out. Simon shook his head. You didn't let her. I left because I couldn't watch what she was doing to you. But I should have said something. Should have told you to leave years ago. We talked for 2 hours about his business, his life, his wife, and 2 kids I barely knew. He showed me pictures, invited me to visit, said his door was always open. Before he left, Simon put a hand on my shoulder. Whatever you're building now, Dad, I'm proud of you. And if you need help, call me. I nodded. Couldn't speak. Didn't trust my voice. After he walked out, I sat there staring at my coffee. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was alone. I had my son back, and that was worth more than anything Eleanor ever gave me. Year 3, after I left, things were moving fast. McKinsey Strategy had clients in 7 states. I wasn't wealthy, but I was comfortable. More importantly, I was free. Then I got a call from an old colleague. His name was Mark Jennings, and we'd worked together in my previous job before Eleanor convinced me to quit and take something less demanding. Mark had moved up in the world now. He was VP of operations for a mid-sized distribution company. Art, Mark said over the phone, I need someone who can unfry our entire supply chain. Heard you were the guy? Where do you hear that? I asked from Gerald at Apex Solutions. Said you turn his operation around in 18 months. That true? It's true. I replied, good. I'm offering you a 6-month contract. Full audit. Total redesign if needed. Name your price. I named it. He didn't blink. What Mark didn't tell me until later was that his company had recently acquired a smaller firm, one that Eleanor's real estate office had connections with. Small world getting smaller. I flew into Cleveland on a Tuesday, rented a car, checked into a hotel under my business name. The first day of work, I walked into the conference room and started laying out the problems I'd already identified from the data they'd sent me. Inventory mismanagement, shipping delays, vendor contracts that hadn't been reviewed in 5 years. I had solutions for all of it. The executives listened, took notes, asked questions. For the first time in my life, people weren't just hearing me, they were respecting me. One of the junior analysts, a sharp woman named Sarah, approached me after the meeting. Mr. McKenzie, Sarah said, I've been trying to tell them about these issues for 2 years. They never listened until you said it. Then you do the hard work. I replied, I just knew how to sell it. She smiled. Still, thank you. Over the next 3 months, I rebuilt their entire logistics framework, cut costs by 30%, reduced shipping times by half. The board was thrilled. Mark pulled me aside one day. Art, I don't know where you've been hiding, but you're wasted as a consultant. Come work for us full-time. I shook my head. I like being independent. Fair enough. But when you're ready to take on something bigger, call me. What I didn't know was that someone had been watching. A journalist, young guy, maybe 30, named David Chun. He was working on a piece about under-the-radar business success stories. People who built empires without social media, without press releases, just results. He reached out through my business email. Mr. McKenzie, I'd like to interview you for a feature. Won't take long. I almost said no, but something made me agree. We met at a quiet restaurant. He asked about my background, my company, my philosophy. I kept it simple. I don't believe in noise. I believe in solving problems. That's all. He scribbled notes. And before this, what were you doing? I paused, learning what not to do. The article came out 2 months later. It wasn't front page, just a feature in a regional business magazine, but it had my photo, a professional headshot I'd had taken specifically for this suit and tie. No smile, just steady eyes and a clean background. The headline read, Arthur McKenzie, the strategist who works in silence. I didn't think much of it. Just another piece of press. Good for business, but I should have known. In a world connected by screens and search engines, nothing stays hidden forever. Eleanor was at the dentist. Routine cleaning. 3rd reschedule this year, because she kept putting it off. The receptionist finally guilted her into showing up. The waiting room was cold. Vinyl chairs, outdated magazines stacked on a scratch coffee table. She grabbed one without looking. Some business publication flipped through absently. Then she stopped. The photo hit her first. A full-page spread. A man in a dark suit standing with his arms crossed, looking directly at the camera. The lighting was professional. The expression was controlled, confident. It was me. Her hand started shaking. The magazine slipped from her fingers, hit the floor with a thud. Another patient glanced over. Eleanor forced a smile, picked it up, flipped back to the page. The headline, Arthur McKenzie, the strategist who works in silence. She read the first paragraph, then the second, then the whole article. Her breath getting shorter with every line. It described a man who'd emerged from nowhere 3 years ago, who'd quietly turned failing logistics operations into profitable machines, who worked without fanfare, without social media, without needing validation, just results. The article quoted several executives. All of them said the same thing. When Arthur speaks, you listen. Eleanor stared at the photo. At my face, older, yes, but not weaker. Sharper, colder, like something inside me had calcified into steel. Her hand shook as she turned the page. There was another photo. Me standing at the head of a conference table, pointing at a chart while a room full of executives leaned in, listening. She remembered those same charts scattered across our living room coffee table. How she used to roll her eyes and say, "Can you move your little project? My book club's coming over." I always moved them, always retreated to the garage, the basement, anywhere. She didn't have to see me working. The receptionist called her name. Eleanor didn't move, just kept staring at the page. At the bottom of the article was a quote attributed to me. "You don't need to be loud to be powerful. You just need to outlast the noise." She read it 3 times. Each time it felt like a blade sliding between her ribs. She stood abruptly, told the receptionist she needed to rescue again, walked out to her car, and sat behind the wheel, gripping the magazine so hard the pages crumpled. She opened her phone, searched my name, found the article online, read it again, then searched for McKinsey Strategy Group. One result, a barebones website. No photos, no contact form. Just a single line. Private consulting referral only. She tried calling the number listed. It rang twice, then went to a generic voicemail. "You've reached McKinsey Strategy. Leave a message." She hung up. Tried again. Same result. That night, she couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about the photo. My face, the way I looked at the camera, like I was looking through it, through her. And for the first time since I left, she understood. I hadn't disappeared because I was broken. I'd disappear because I was done. Done being her punchline. Done being invisible. I'd walked away and built something she could never touch, never mock, never diminish. And now, staring at my face in that magazine, she realized something that made her stomach turn. I hadn't needed her. I'd never needed her. I'd just been kind enough to let her believe I did. Eleanor showed up at my office 3 days after seeing the magazine. I knew she'd come eventually. Detective Grant had warned me months ago that she'd been asking questions, trying to find me. My receptionist buzzed me. "Mr. McKinsey, there's a woman here. Says she's your wife. She doesn't have an appointment." I leaned back in my chair. "Tell her I'm in a meeting." 5 minutes later, Eleanor walked past security and burst into my office anyway. Some things never change. She stood in the doorway, breathing hard, eyes red. She looked older, tired. The confidence she used to wear like armor was gone. "Arthur," Eleanor said, her voice shaking. I didn't stand, didn't smile, just looked at her like she was a stranger interrupting my afternoon. "You need an appointment," I replied. "An appointment?" Her voice rose. "I'm your wife. You are my wife." I corrected. Past tense. "The divorce papers were filed 18 months ago. You signed them." She had through her lawyer. Without ever trying to contact me directly, Eleanor stepped closer. "Why didn't you tell me about all this?" She gestured around the office, the sleek furniture, the wall of client logos, the view of the city skyline. "Tell you what, I asked that you were building this, that you were." She struggled for words. "That you were someone." I stood then slowly looked her in the eye. "I was always someone, Eleanor. You just needed me to be no one so you could feel important." Her face crumpled. "That's not fair." "Fair." I walked around the desk, kept my distance. "You humiliated me in front of 20 people, made a slideshow of my failures, laughed when they laughed, and when I left, you posted jokes about it online. I didn't think you'd actually leave," she whispered. "I know that was the problem." She wiped her eyes. "I'm sorry. I was wrong. I see that now. Can we just talk?" "We are talking. I mean, really talk about us about fixing this." I shook my head. "There's no us, Eleanor. There hasn't been for years. You just didn't notice because I stopped fighting back. So that's it." Her voice hardened. "You just throw away 20 years. I didn't throw them away. You did one joke at a time." Security appeared at the door. 2 men in dark suits. I called them the moment she walked in. "Mrs. McKinsey is leaving," I said. Eleanor looked at the guards, then back at me. "You're really going to throw me out?" "Yes." She laughed bitterly. "You've changed." "No," I replied. "I just stopped pretending to be smaller than I am so you could feel bigger." They escorted her out. She didn't fight, just walked. Shoulders slumped. All the fire gone. After she left, I sat down and stared out the window. I didn't feel victorious. Didn't feel vindicated, just tired. My phone buzzed. A text from Simon, my son. Heard Eleanor showed up. You okay? I typed back. I'm fine. Dinner this weekend. Absolutely. I put the phone down, took a breath, and got back to work. For months after Eleanor's visit, I got a call from Detective Grant. He sounded tired. Mr. McKenzie, Grant said, just wanted to update you. Mrs. McKenzie is officially closing the case. No missing person, no foul play, just a man who left legally. Good, I replied. For what it's worth, Grant added. I've seen a lot of disappearances. Most of them are men running from something. You weren't running. You were walking towards something better. I appreciated that. The business kept growing. By year 5, I had 15 employees and clients across the country. I moved into a bigger office. Hire my son Simon as a consultant. He brought a fresh perspective, and working together healed wounds I didn't know we both carried. One afternoon, my stepdaughter Chloe reached out. Not through Eleanor directly. She sent an email to my business address. Arthur, the email read, I know I don't deserve your time, but I wanted you to know I'm sorry. I watched that video again. The one from the party. I was ashamed of myself. You helped me so much and I laughed at you. I'm pregnant now. The father left. Mom won't help. I don't know who else to ask. I stared at that email for a long time. Then I called her. Chloe answered on the first ring. Arthur, it's me, I said. She broke down crying. Apologized over and over. I let her finish. Chloe, I said, I'm going to help you. Not because I owe you anything, but because that's who I choose to be. Over the next 6 months, I covered her medical bills. Set up a trust for the baby. Made sure she had what she needed without Eleanor's knowledge or interference. When the baby was born, Chloe named him Simon after my son. She sent me a picture. I put on my desk next to the one of my grandkids. As for Eleanor, I heard through mutual acquaintances that she lost the house. Couldn't keep up with payments after her business dried up. She moved into a small apartment, worked part-time, stayed off social media. I didn't celebrate her downfall. Didn't feel satisfaction, just indifference. She'd made her choices. I'd made mine, and we both had to live with them. 10 months later, I was invited to speak in National Logistics Conference. 500 people in attendance. When I walked onto that stage, I looked out at the crowd and realized something. I wasn't that man anymore. The one who stood silent while people laughed at him. The one who shrank himself to fit someone else's narrative. I was Arthur McKenzie, strategist, consultant, father, grandfather, and nobody ever again would make me feel small. I started my speech the way I'd started this journey, with the truth. My name is Arthur McKenzie. 5 years ago, I walked away from a life where I was invisible. Today, I'm standing in front of you because I refuse to stay that way. The room went silent. Then someone started clapping. Then another. Then the entire audience stood. Not because I conquered anything dramatic, but because they understood. We all knew what it felt like to be underestimated. And we all knew what it took to prove them wrong. After the speech, a young man approached me. Mid-20s, nervous. Mr. McKenzie, he said, my wife doesn't respect me. Makes jokes, tears me down. I don't know what to do. I looked at him. Saw myself 5 years ago. You know what to do. I said, you're just afraid to do it. He nodded, walked away. I hoped he'd find his courage. I never saw Eleanor again. Never looked back. Never wondered what if. Because the best revenge isn't cruelty. It's peace. And I finally had mine.